Welcome back, guys. Got another video for you on the red Z06 today. In the last video, we saw the LS7 come out and that thing looked like a bomb went off. Almost no good parts, completely destroyed from top to bottom, but it was fun to tear it down, bring you guys along for the ride. If you're just tuning in, I'll link the other two videos to the start of this car up here somewhere. But today, we're gonna be making some progress and putting this thing back together and giving it a new lease on life. So, big problem. We've got a whole pile of LS7 parts back there that's good for nothing but a paperweight. So, we need something to go in here. Good news is I got it. The bad news is I picked it up about 3 to 4 weeks ago. And I've obviously been working on the car, getting it to this point where we're ready to, need a new motor. But I did film some of it, and a little bit of background on it. So I'm gonna send you guys over to Chris from the past. He looks just like me, and he's gonna bring you up to speed on this LS7 that we just picked up. What's up, guys? Chris from the past here. It's a beautiful fall day. Got all the doors wide open. Cars and trucks scattered about. 69 Camaro sitting out there. Just finished the exhaust project on that, which may or may not be on YouTube yet. I don't even know. The red Z06 I have not even started working on, but that's why we're in the past right now. So here's our replacement LS7. Just picked it up from the shipping terminal about an hour away last night. First motor I've ever purchased off of eBay. With about $500 freight charge, I paid, I think, $9,200-ish. The good thing about this motor, well, there's two good things about this motor. One, it was recently, the bottom end was refreshed. Second thing is, the mileage out of this thing is 38,000. The red car out there has 36,000. So not only does the mileage match perfectly, but the bottom end is refreshed. Should be in excellent shape, excellent compression. Seller, right here, AutoWorks, has good reviews, and it seems like this motor's in pretty good shape. It's a little bit, dirty, but anyways, right now, you get this thing on the engine stand, get rid of all this packaging and the mess we've made here. The garage is an absolute disaster because of the Camaro exhaust, but I'd like to get this on the engine stand, get cleaned up, and we'll go from there. Man, that Chris from the past, he is a good looking fella. Anyways, so here it is in its current state. This is our LS7 replacement long block. So basically exactly what we just took out of the car last week, but you'll notice there's not two holes right here. This is what it's supposed to look like. Big difference. And I would guess that this piston and this sleeve and all that is still in good shape, or I would hope so, considering I paid almost $9,500 for this thing. But yeah, this is my LS7 out of, I believe it was a 06 or 07 C6 Z06. I got it from these guys, AutoWorks, in Wisconsin. They were pretty good to deal with. I think that past Chris went over this, but just in case he didn't, this motor was attractive to me because the mileage matches this car, which is about 36,000 miles. And two, it's been rebuilt. The whole bottom end has been gone through. Main bearings, rod bearings, thrust bearings. The cylinders have been honed and new rings fitted. All new gaskets all around, new head gaskets, new head bolts, valve cover gaskets, front timing cover gasket, rear gasket, just basically top to bottom gone through. So this thing should be ready to go. So there's a lot more details that I'm going to get into in this motor. Some things that I've learned since I've had it that are very important for this build. But I don't want to start this video just talking, blabbing for 5-10 minutes at a time. So let's get into what we need to get done first before the motor can go in, and then we can kind of take a break and talk about the motor a little more and what's done to it already. It's good stuff. So if you guys know me, I already got a preliminary list going here. And you notice two of these things that I want to get done sooner than later. First one, clean up the engine bay. It's disgusting in there. Still looks like a bomb went off in here. Shards of aluminum, oil all down the sides. Just there's still chunks of the motor down there, which we'll have to get out somehow. And just lots of cleanup work to do in here. You can't be putting a nice new motor in something gross like this. We got to clean that up. Second thing is, I want to delete the oil cooler on this car. The C6 Z06 comes from the factory with a oil cooler up front. You can see those lines come from the heat exchanger, and then they're hard lines right to right there. And, that's great if you're tracking the car, which this guy was. But if you got a street car like this one, my 2008 Z06, back when this thing had an LS7 in it, and I had the oil cooler up front, the oil would take legit 45 minutes to come up to a temperature where I felt comfortable beating on the car. The oil cooler does not have any sort of thermostat in it, so the oil cooler is just constantly getting airflow to the point where if I was running the car like this time of year in winter, it might never get up to temperature. So some guys put like a sleeve over half the oil cooler, some guys put a thermostat in the oil cooler lines, which is probably the correct way to do it. Other guys like me in this car just deleted it. Got rid of it altogether. Oil temperatures are much better, comes up much faster, and the car's a lot more drivable. I'm going to do that in this car as well for the reasons I just mentioned, and also because all that junk that we found in the oil and everywhere else in that old LS7 is now probably in this oil cooler as well. So if we put a brand new $10,000 motor in the car, don't flush out that oil cooler or don't delete it altogether, there's a chance some of that shrapnel ends up in this motor, and that's not good. You with me? Sorry, like I said, I've been talking a lot, but that's why I'm deleting the oil cooler. Let's do less talking. Let's get to work. Let's front bumper back off. Just threw it up here to get out of the way. Let's start cleaning up the engine bay, get that oil cooler out of here. Start preparing to put this new motor in this Hertz Z06. Nothing like an iced coffee at 7 o'clock at night, because we got a lot of work to do. But got a bunch done already. So took advantage of my floor drains there and power washed this whole engine bay, degreased, scrubbed it, got rid of all the blood and guts that were spewing across this side of the engine bay. And it looks factory fresh in here. Like she just rolled off the assembly line in '08. So looks really good in here. All this, crap is gone from the K-member. Everything looks great in here. Quick degrease, power wash really made a difference. You can't be putting a nice motor in a disgusting engine bay. So I always do this when I have a motor out. Did it on the 69, did it on that car. You'd just be silly not to do it. So that's done. Also, you guys might notice, got the rear jacked up a little bit, shimmied under there with about 2 inches to spare, and got the X-pipe down. And this is a stainless, like, Kooks or Corsa off-road X-pipe, it looks like. So that's nice. And the reason I did that was to get the bell housing off. And the reason that I did that is to get the slave cylinder out. Because when you're swapping a motor, one of those while you're in there things is a clutch and a slave cylinder. You'd also be silly not to do those things when you got direct access to the back of the motor. You guys that are familiar with the C6, probably C5 and maybe C7 as well, the torque tube and transmission are in the back of the car. So the torque tube protector cover plate there, remove the 50 or whatever 8mm screws that allowed me to lower the torque tube down enough that I could get to those top bell housing bolts. So that's done. At this point, I think we're ready to talk about some new parts and maybe a little bit more about the engine. So I bought this engine and I was under the impression that it had stock heads. And my plan was to pull them off and send them out to be rebuilt, new guides, machined and all that, so that we could call this LS7, reliable and not have the same potential failure that happened originally. Even though some of you guys in the comments were saying this vehicle was over-revved, that is probably the case. So I don't think we can say that there was a valve failure for sure in this case. But either way, it would be a mistake in my opinion to put, a stock-headed LS7 back in this car. So my plan was to send these out, get them rebuilt. But when I got the motor here, I took a look in the exhaust ports, and I was like, those look ported. Same thing with the intake. You can see, this looks like port work. Someone ported these. It's not how a standard LS7 head looks. This is how a standard LS7 head or a stock LS7 head looks. See the grooves in there from the OEM machining? That's stock. See how that's all smoothed out over here? So these are ported heads. So then I started looking around a little bit more, and I found this number on the back. LPE 3157. It's on both heads. And you guys that know Corvette may be aware of Lingenfelter Performance. The top names in Corvette and streetcar performance out there, you've probably heard of them. They've been porting and rebuilding LS7 heads for years. So I called them up, said, hey, what are these? They were like, oh, those are our package whatever LS7 heads. They have new guides, machined, ported, this and that. Here's the package. Here's when we did them. And, that's what they are. So that's huge. So for the, adding to the value that I got in this motor, we have a set of rebuilt heads that are ported, good new guides, good machining. So much so that Lingenfelter is willing to warranty their 630 horsepower, whatever motors for like 36,000 miles. So they're confident they're machining. I'm confident they're machining. I'm psyched about that. We have a awesome set of heads on this completely rebuilt LS7. And, I think that even though we had to pay almost $10,000 for it, that's a great value. So we got aftermarket valve springs, titanium retainers here. Got our lash caps on all the intake valves. The LS7 rockers have a trunnion upgrade. These look like Brian Tooley Racing 3/8" push rods. Just this thing's ready to go. So that's one less thing for me to do. I wasn't angry when I found out about that. We've got a badass LS7 here. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention, most important thing, everyone who's got a C6 Z06 wants that chop chop. This thing has a big cam motion custom grind cam in it. So you guys will hear that, I guess, when we first start it up, but it's got a big cam motion cam. I called those guys over at Cam Motion. Great guys over there. They told me all about the specs. It's a super aggressive NA cam, which is perfect for a 7-liter LS7 that's going to rev up to the moon. Anyways, talk about the next steps for what we need to do right now. As I was saying, you'd be silly to not put a clutch in something when you got the back of the motor all taken apart. So that's what we got here. Got a LS7 clutch, brand new. LUK is the OEM manufacturer of the LS7 clutch. The LS7 clutch is proven in the C6 Z06, well beyond 600 wheel horsepower, drag radials for many, many miles. So with a stock intake manifold, stock throttle body, this motor will probably be somewhere at or just below that. We'll see when we get it on the dyno, but I'm very confident the LS7 clutch will be good for the power that it's going to make in this form. Again, you guys saw in the Camaro video, it's the same clutch that I put in this car. I think from Rock Auto, with a brand new flywheel, brand new clutch kit that includes a slave cylinder. I think it was like 350 bucks. So you can't beat that. You start looking at aftermarket clutches, you're looking at $1,000+. So the LS7 clutch, that's why you see it in all sorts of aftermarket. That's why you see it in all sorts of LS swap builds. It's just a great value. It's in this car. It feels awesome. I've had it in a bunch of cars. I could not say enough good stuff about this car or about this clutch. Of course, Rock Auto had it on my door in like 36 hours. So all that being said, let's get back to work. I got to get this motor off the stand and get this clutch on it, get the slave cylinder on that torque tube so we can get it ready to go back in the car. Maybe before I take it off the stand, I'll put some of the accessories from the blown up motor that we need, transfer them over to the good motor, and just get this thing as ready as we can to go back in the car. Well, boys, I think she's just about ready to go in. Got the new slave cylinder on there. Another must do if you're doing a clutch on a C6 or C5 or probably C7 as well. Remote clutch bleeder. You guys actually saw me do this on the 69 Camaro. That's what you see right there. I've got one on my other Z06 as well. So if you're doing a clutch, definitely do one of those. Makes it an absolute breeze to bleed the clutch. Anyways, new GM OEM slave cylinder down there. Got the bell housing back on, torque to spec. Got that plate that goes under the torque tube, all bolted up. So we're good to go down there. You guys also saw I got a brand new flywheel, brand new LS7 clutch on there. I used an old input shaft I had laying around as an alignment tool. The plastic ones suck, just throw those things away. So we got that on there. Got our little, whatever those plastic things are. Ooh, I gotta take my flywheel holder tool off before we put it in. Prime the oil pump, got a Wix filter on there. Motor mounts are on. These are actually, I think, Hinson motor mounts. They're aftermarket. The motor came with knock sensors and a crank position sensor over here as well. AC bracket is on, so I think we're pretty much ready to go. I pulled all the spark plugs out. I've obviously got new ones for it anyways. I wanted to show you guys these cylinders. They all look like this. Just scope this, hopefully you guys can see this. Piston looks brand new. Cylinder walls, you know, you can see they did a fresh honing on them. Looks brand new in here. Really happy to see this. These are, I'm pretty sure these are stock pistons. They look just like the ones that I took out of the motor last week. But just super, super clean. Let's see, we'll check this one. Yeah, same thing. Some of them are more up in the bore, but looking brand new in there. You know, just as I expected, just as the picture showed, but just cool to see. I love this borescope. If you guys don't have one of these already, highly recommend getting one. I'll leave the link to this one in the description. But yeah, so I think we are ready to start the wrestling match. Me and this thing are going 10 rounds. Getting that motor in. I've put a whole bunch of motors in C6s and it's never been a good time. Now, it's not so bad getting it in, but getting that input shaft to line up and get the angle of the dangle just perfect is always a struggle. With that being said, I'm just gonna double check that we've done everything that we need to do. Then I'm gonna raise this thing up, get it at an angle and kind of submarine it into the engine bay here. But real quick, before we do that, told you guys we're gonna have some more mods coming for this thing. I mean, you can't put a C6 Z06 back together stock. So let's unbox some of the stuff we got. Yep, it's exhaust. So I've actually got Speed Engineering headers on the 69. They fit great, good value. I wanted to do a set of long tubes. You gotta do long tubes on your C6, especially, you know, the motor's out. There's no way I'm putting stock manifolds and stock hats back on there. But anyways, here's what we got. Shoo! Stainless. Oh yeah. 304 stainless 1 7/8 inch C6 Z06 long tube headers. Oh yeah. You know I had to bolt them up. See this thing, how it's gonna look in the car. Looks sick. Even though you can't really see any of this once it's in the car, except for like maybe that, good to know that this is what lies beneath. For a reasonable price, I think with the X-Pipe, about $600. 1 7/8 long tube, 304 stainless steel headers. These are all TIG welded. Welds look nice, material feels nice and thick. I've heard that fitment is very good. The C6s and Corvettes that kind of neck down here into the center to kind of tuck under the trans tunnel there and follow the torque tube. X-Pipe is in this box and allegedly, haven't really opened it yet, but they give you an X-Pipe for LS2, LS3, and LS7 cars, so we'll probably have some extra piping to boot. I just put these on for now, just to show you guys what they look like. Just a couple bolts holding them in, but we're gonna take these off before we put the motor in. I don't know if I could get the motor in with them on, but either way, these things should slip in no problem, especially with the K-member down. I think that once the motor and bell housing are mated, I'll leave this down to give me some more room. I should be able to slip these in and then raise the subframe up. It's time for this C6 Z06, which has blown up motor parts all over this garage, to have a second lease on life and a new to it, used but rebuilt LS7. Anyways, let's get it in there. She's in. I'm giving this one a 2 out of 10, or 3 out of, we'll call it a 3 out of 10 as far as C6 motor installation difficulty. These things have been known to fight me, but I must be getting pretty good at it. This one fought me a little bit, but really not too bad. Once I get the angle right, which is, you know, obviously the angle between the torque tube and transmission, which is right there. It usually slides together pretty easy. You get a bell housing bolt started. You just don't want to force it in. You could damage the clutch and or input shaft. So got that done, not too big of a deal. Figured while the K-member is still down, let's take advantage of all the room we have. Headers slid right in, absolutely no issues at all. They look like they're gonna fit good. Got the AC compressor on because that thing's kind of a pain to get in. Got my starter up in there. Got all my grounds hooked up, knock sensors, crank position sensor, all that pain in the butt stuff down there. So we're looking good here. I have like 2 bell housing bolts back there that I can't get to because of the engine chain, or the chain that's still supporting the engine. So I think what I'd like to do next is get this K-member up, get those last 2 bell housing bolts, and then we can get this thing back on the ground. Also got the dry sump tank cleaned up, as I mentioned earlier. This thing, if you blow up your motor or you get any sort of particulate or trash in your oil, there's a chance it could be in the dry sump there. So we got this thing looking spick and span, brand new, top and bottom. Same thing with the dry sump lines. There's a little screen at the bottom of the dry sump. We blew that out. So this thing will be perfectly clean, and we know we'll have no contaminants in our brand new motor. Now that this bay is open, albeit a little bit dirty and I need to clean it up, I'd like to push this thing out and get it back over in the bay because I'm tired of rolling around on my back. Getting too old for this stuff. So yeah, I think that's a good plan for right now. So let's get the K-member up, get it connected to the motor, make this thing a roller again, and push it out and get it in the lift bay. Getting close though. There's the parts pile is getting smaller over here, and the motor is in. So let's keep going. Z06 is back on the lift where it should be, and we've made some good progress since I last checked in with you guys. The whole K-member, cross member is back up under the car, fully bolted in. Shocks are connected again. Wheels are back on. This thing is once again a rolling chassis with a motor in it. I got to push into the lift bay here so we can continue working on it. Since the motor is fully bolted in, we're getting ready to put some accessories on, get the fan back in here. Got to get our new intake manifold on there, button up the rest of this stuff, and we are pretty close. So you guys, Corvette guys, will know that the alternator bracket is pretty visible on these things. So got that painted up because we couldn't have a dirty old, corroded alternator bracket, top, front, and center. Probably end up doing the same thing with the alternator, but just waiting for the weather to warm up just a little bit. But accessories are getting ready to go on. Long tube headers are in. Got to sort out this X pipe mess right here, since they include basically every C6 configuration you'd need. Also got the fuel completely drained out of this thing. I just jumped the fuel pump relay, which is this guy right here on the C6s. Drained out all that fuel. We were gonna want fresh 93 octane in this thing for our first startup, so just kind of knocked that out while I had the car right there on the ground. But the motor is in, and that is a big milestone for this project. The Hurt C6 Z06 has a heart again. That's gonna do it for this video. I'm gonna start working on the next video right now, so that'll be coming out before you guys know it. Thank you guys as always for watching. If you like what you see, consider subscribing. There's plenty more Corvette, Camaro, who knows what content coming up next. So until next time, thank you guys as always for watching. We'll see you in the next one.